My parents invited everybody, excluding my son, to a family Christmas party, so I ended up everything right away. I'm 34 and never imagined I'd be widowed. But here I am, trying to get my 7-year-old through his morning routine while fighting back tears that still come 8 months after losing Mark. The accident at the construction site happened so suddenly. One minute I was planning dinner, the next I was getting a call that changed our lives forever. Those first few months were a blur of paperwork, funeral arrangements, and sleepless nights spent holding Tommy as he cried for his dad. If it weren't for my in-laws, I honestly don't know how we would have made it. They've been absolute angels, picking Tommy up from school every day so I can focus on putting our lives back together. Every time I stop by their house after work, my mother-in-law tries to slip an envelope of money into my purse. Every time I push it back. "Dakota, sweetie, we want to help," she always says. "We know the insurance company paid well, but your family, let us do this." She's right about the insurance. The company paid out $300,000 after Mark's death. Between that and my job as a marketing manager, we're doing okay financially. But with my in-laws, it's never been about money. It's about the love they show us every single day. I wish I could say the same about my own parents. Mom and Dad have always made it crystal clear that my older sister Rachel was their golden child. Now they extend that same favoritism to her kids over Tommy. Last weekend was a perfect example. Tommy was excited to see his grandparents, bouncing around asking questions about everything, just being his curious 7-year-old self. "Why does the clock make that sound?" he asked, pointing to their antique grandfather clock. "How does it work inside?" Mom sighed dramatically, rolling her eyes. "Dakota, can't you control him? He's always asking questions about everything." "Rachel's kids never give us this much trouble," Dad muttered, retreating behind his laptop screen. I felt that familiar twist in my stomach. Of course, Rachel's 3 kids were perfect in their eyes, even though they barely looked up from their phones. Meanwhile, my bright, curious Tommy was being criticized for simply wanting to learn about the world around him. It was just another chapter in a lifetime of being the less favored child. I'd learned to bite my tongue years ago, but watching them treat Tommy the same way still stung. At least they helped occasionally with childcare, watching him when I had late meetings or picking him up if both my in-laws were busy, though I couldn't shake the feeling they were doing it out of obligation rather than love. Then came that Tuesday dinner that changed everything. I should have known something was up when Mom made my favorite dish. Dad was unusually chatty, asking about work, about Tommy, about everything. They were building up to something, but I couldn't guess what. "So, Dakota," Mom said carefully, "we've been meaning to ask you something. How much was Mark's life insurance payout?" The question hit me like a slap. I nearly choked on my water, completely blindsided by such a direct inquiry about something so personal. Maybe it was the shock, or maybe I was just tired of keeping secrets from them, but I answered honestly. "About $300,000, I said quietly. The room fell silent. Mom's fork clattered against her plate. Dad's head snapped up so fast I thought he might hurt himself. They stared at me like I'd just announced I'd won the lottery. "Well," Mom said, putting down her fork deliberately, "what are you planning to do with all that money?" I could feel the weight of their expectations pressing down on me. "I've invested it," I explained, trying to keep my voice steady. "It's for Tommy's future, his college education, maybe help him buy an apartment when he's older." That was always the plan Mark and I had discussed, but Dad waved his hand dismissively. "That's years away, Dakota. You should be thinking about the present, about your family." The way he said family made it clear he wasn't talking about Tommy. It was that same tone they always used when helping Rachel with her house down payment or funding her lavish wedding. "You could do so much with that money now," Mom chimed in, leaning forward eagerly. "You could help your family, people who need it today, not save it all for some distant future that might not even happen." "I'm not discussing my money anymore," I cut her off, my voice sharper than intended. The silence that followed was deafening. They both sat back, Dad's face clouding over with that familiar disappointment I'd seen so many times growing up. Mom pressed her lips into that thin line that always meant trouble. I thought that would be the end of it. I expected their usual month-long silent treatment, their go-to response when I didn't meet their expectations. But to my surprise, Mom called just a week later. "We're having a family dinner on Sunday," she announced, her voice warm as if nothing had happened. "Rachel and the kids will be there too. You have to come, sweetie." Something about her tone made me uneasy, but I agreed. When I arrived that Sunday, Rachel was already there with her 3 kids, all glued to their phones as usual. We sat down to eat, and Rachel started talking about rising prices, bills piling up, and how hard it was to make ends meet these days. That's when the trap sprung. "I've been thinking," Rachel announced, looking around the table with that same self-righteous expression she'd worn since we were kids. "Dakota and I should help Mom and Dad financially." She paused for effect before continuing. "I'll send them $500 every month. I wish I could do more, but you know how it is. Jack's the only one working, and with 3 kids. She trailed off, letting that sink in before turning to me with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "But you, Dakota, you should send them $1,000 monthly." I nearly choked again. "What?" "Well, it makes sense," Rachel pressed on. "You earn really well at your job and you only have 1 child to support. Plus, with your situation, you have other income now." My blood boiled at her careful avoidance of mentioning Mark's death directly. I wanted to scream that I was a widow, that I didn't have a husband's income to rely on anymore. But Mom was already clapping her hands in delight, and Dad was beaming like it was Christmas morning. "Oh, girls," Mom exclaimed, "you don't know what this means to us." I sat there, torn between anger and disbelief, watching my family's expectant faces. The words of refusal died in my throat. I'd spent my whole life trying to earn their approval, and here they were, putting a price tag on it. "Fine," I heard myself say, "I'll do it." The first transfer hurt the most, $1,000 gone with a few clicks. I told myself it was worth it if it meant more family support with Tommy, but that fantasy quickly unraveled. Every time I needed help with Tommy, there was an excuse. "Mom, could you pick Tommy up from school today? Sarah has a doctor's appointment and I have a late meeting." "Oh, honey, I'm so sorry," Mom's voice would crackle through the phone. "I've got such a headache today, you know how my migraines get." This became a pattern. Mom was too busy, she was tired, she had errands to run, her back was acting up. Meanwhile, the $1,000 left my account like clockwork every month. Then came the Christmas betrayal. It was a week before Christmas when Mom called. "Dakota, honey," she started, using that syrupy sweet tone that always preceded bad news. "About Christmas Eve, we've decided to do something different this year. We're having an adults-only party, no children allowed." The pencil I was holding snapped in my hand. "What?" "It's just that we want to do something more sophisticated this year," Mom continued, as if she was discussing something as trivial as changing dinner plans. "You know, wine, adult conversation." "But it's Christmas," I protested, moving away so Tommy couldn't hear. "What am I supposed to do with Tommy?" "Oh, that's easy," she replied, her voice light and dismissive. "You can leave him with your in-laws, they'd love to have him, I'm sure. You'll come by around 7. After hanging up, I stared at Tommy, who was still working on his math problems, completely unaware that his grandmother had just uninvited him from Christmas. My heart ached, watching him concentrate on his multiplication tables, his tongue sticking out just like Mark's used to. I decided to compromise. I'd leave Tommy with my in-laws for a few hours, make an appearance at my parents' house to exchange gifts and greetings, then head back to celebrate properly with my in-laws and son. But when I arrived at my parents' house that Christmas Eve, my world tilted on its axis. The house was packed with relatives, aunts, uncles, cousins, and their children. Rachel's 3 kids were running through the living room wearing paper crowns. This wasn't an adults-only party at all. It was a party where only my son wasn't welcome. More relatives gathered around, all asking the same question. Where was Tommy? Why had I come alone? Each inquiry felt like a knife twisting in my gut. Through the crowd, I spotted my mother in the kitchen, arranging cookies on a Christmas-themed platter as if everything was perfectly normal. As if she hadn't just excluded her only grandson from a family celebration. "Mom," I said, my voice low and controlled, "can we talk?" The confrontation that followed changed everything. "So why are Rachel's kids here? Why are all the cousins' children here?" Mom straightened her Christmas sweater, not meeting my eyes. "Well, that's different." "Different how?" "Those children," she said, gesturing vaguely toward the living room, "know how to behave at formal gatherings. They're well-mannered." I stared at her in disbelief. "Well-mannered? Tommy is one of the most polite children I know. His teachers praise his behavior constantly, my in-laws always say." "Oh," Mom interrupted, rolling her eyes. "They spoil him, encourage all those endless questions. The other children, they deserve to be here more, they know their place." As if on cue, a commotion erupted from the dining room. Rachel's youngest son, Kevin, had grabbed a handful of deviled eggs and was throwing them at his sister. The eggs sailed across the room, splattering against Emily's new Christmas dress as she shrieked. I turned back to my mother, raising an eyebrow. "Yes, I can clearly see their superior manners on display." That's when I decided to expose everything. I cleared my throat loudly, cutting through the holiday music and chatter. All eyes turned to me. "Several of you have asked why I came alone tonight," I began, my voice stronger than I expected. "Why Tommy isn't here celebrating Christmas with his family." I told them everything about the adults-only lie, about the monthly payments, about Rachel's fake contribution. The room erupted in shocked murmurs and angry outbursts. Rachel's husband Jack was livid. "You're sending your parents money every month from where? Our account barely covers the bills as it is." Rachel's composure cracked. "I never actually sent any money," she stammered. "Mom and Dad asked me to say I was sending $500 so Dakota would agree to help them financially." The silence that followed was deafening. I watched comprehension dawn on my relatives' faces as they pieced together what had happened, how my parents and sister had manipulated me into supporting them while simultaneously excluding my child from family events. I raised my hand, silencing the ongoing arguments. "I have something else to say." The room fell quiet again. "From this moment on," I said, my voice steady and clear, "I will no longer be sending you any money, and I won't be maintaining any relationship with you or Rachel. I'm done." I walked out, leaving the bag of gifts by the door. The sound of it closing behind me felt final, like the ending of a chapter that should have been finished long ago. Sitting in my car, I pulled out my phone and opened my banking app. With a few quick taps, I canceled the monthly transfer to my mother's account. It felt like cutting off a chain I'd been dragging behind me for months. The drive to my in-laws' house seemed to take both forever and no time at all. We spent the rest of Christmas Eve with them. This, I realized, was what family should feel like. The aftermath was swift and complete. My aunt called the next morning to tell me how the evening had ended, how relatives had left en masse, not even bothering to say goodbye to my parents. Jack had packed up his kids and taken them to his parents' house, telling Rachel he needed time to think about their marriage. My phone buzzed with messages from Mom, Dad, and Rachel, all variations of "we're sorry" and "please talk to us and we can explain." I read each message once, then archived them without responding. The week between Christmas and New Year's passed peacefully. Tommy and I spent quiet evenings with my in-laws, played board games, watched holiday movies, and enjoyed the simple pleasure of being with people who truly loved us both. When my parents showed up on New Year's Eve with an expensive gift for Tommy, trying to buy their way back into our lives, I finally said what I should have said years ago. Are you sorry because you realize what you did was wrong, or are you sorry because the entire family knows what you did and won't speak to you anymore? Their exchanged glance told me everything I needed to know. I think you should leave, I said quietly. I don't believe you and I don't trust you, not anymore. But we're family, Mom protested, tears welling up in her eyes. No, I shook my head. Family doesn't manipulate each other. Family doesn't exclude a child from Christmas. Family doesn't scheme and lie to get money. What you did, that's not family. I watched my son bloom under the attention and love of family members who actually wanted to know him, not change him. He started calling my in-laws grandma and grandpa exclusively now, and they continued to be our rocks, our safe harbor in any storm. Sometimes I still think about that Christmas Eve, about the moment I finally stood up to my parents. It wasn't just about the money or even about Tommy's exclusion. It was about recognizing that a real family isn't determined by blood but by love, respect, and acceptance.